Good afternoon and welcome. We are so delighted that you're able to join us for another AY program. I am Tamara White, and it is my distinct pleasure to welcome you. So this afternoon, we're in for a very informative, very interesting program. The title you may have seen by our promotional flyer, but if you didn't, I'll just tell you what it is. And I'm asking that you stay tuned, stay connected, and be sure to share this link with someone who will find this very informative and interesting. So this afternoon, we're focusing on the topic, not another couples program. Don't be turned off by the topic, whether you're single, married, divorced, it does not matter what your relational status is. This program is for everyone. It is a family program. So right now, I'm just going to ask that you take a quick minute, grab your device, your smartphone, your tablet, whatever it is, and just share this link with someone and ask them to come on and be a part of this program. All right. Someone says if you're doing just that, so I'll give you another quick second to continue and just to wrap up. All right. So, all right, now that that's done, I'm going to ask that you join me in prayer as we get started. Our Heavenly Father God, we're thankful to you for the privilege of life. We thank you for this wonderful opportunity that you have afforded us to be together, though virtually, to discuss a topic that is of significance to us and to you. For the institution of marriage and relationships on a whole is one of the first things that you created. And we just want to thank you for your wisdom, your foresight, and for this blessing that it is to us. Lord, thank you for every person who is joining now and those who have already joined. We thank you for all the members of our technical team, and we ask that you will bless, guide, direct, that you will hold up all of our internet connections so that this program can go far and wide, and it can be an inspiration and a blessing to those who may find it most beneficial. We thank you for hearing, and we thank you for answering our prayers. In Jesus' name, amen. At this time, we're going to move right into our AY ideals, and then we will have a special song.
Now for the AY ideals. The AY aim, the Advent message to all the world in my generation. The AY motto, for the love of Christ constrains me. The AY pledge, loving the Lord Jesus, I promise to take an active part in the youth ministry of the church, doing what I can to help others and to finish the work of the gospel in all the world. The AY song, Adventist youth are we, from every land and sea. Together we pray and work and play in happy harmony. We have a faith to share with others everywhere. The message of love from God above to show the world we care. Adventist youth, Adventist youth, Adventist youth.
Jenny's got more month than she's got money. Works 3 jobs, she's barely getting by. Bob got word it's mom been told it's cancer. So many questions, and all of them ask why. We're living in a broken world, and a broken world can't give you any answers. Everything is upside down. Wrong is right and right is wrong, but not for long. No, not for long. This broken world is cradled by a Savior, and nothing here can take him by surprise. Someday all this hurting will be over, when every tear's been wiped taking hours praying. The child's done gone, left everything behind. Daddy's getting tired, his faith is fading. You can't get water from a well that's running dry. Oh, but we're living in a broken world. A broken world can't give you any answers. Everything is upside down. Wrong is right and right is wrong, but not for long. No, not for long. For this broken world is cradled by a Savior, and nothing here can take him by surprise. Someday all this hurting will be over, when every tear's been wiped away and dried. But for now, we're living in a broken world, but not for long. Oh, not for long. This broken world is cradled by a Savior. Nothing here can take him by surprise. Someday all this hurting will be over, when every tear's been wiped away and dried. But for now, we're living in a broken world, not for long. But for now, we're living in a broken world, not for long. Oh, not for long.
That was a lovely, lovely, lovely song. We're living in a broken world, but not for long. So I did tell you at the top of the program that we're discussing a very interesting topic, not another couples program. So when we hear couples, I remember before I got married, when we heard about couples program and so on, we would expect some level of motion, oh well, we're not quite ready, we're not quite interested, kind of thing. But I can assure you that this program this afternoon, it's going to have your interest. It's something that's very informative, very relevant, very family focused. And again, as I mentioned, it does not matter what your marital status is, your relationship status, it doesn't matter. It is for everybody. So COVID-19, it's one of those buzzwords that's just not going away anytime soon. Not only has it changed the way we work, not only has it changed the way our kids go to school, it has also changed the way we pursue love. And some of our persons who are on our program this afternoon, they will be able to share some more insights and information as to just how real this has been for them. So persons have had to make adjustments to the way they go about, trying to find love. We all have a moral responsibility to ensure that we keep ourselves and each other safe. So obviously the distancing and observing the government protocols and restrictions and so on, those would have, quite a bit of impact on our pursuit of relationships and love. So we persons have had to, heal and come again, as we say in Jamaica, make some amount of adjustment to, make this idea of love work. So we're going to talk a little bit about that for this afternoon. Our goal here is really to help persons of all ages, whether you're young, senior, it doesn't matter. We want to help to share some insights and information and, experiences that can help persons to avoid some pitfalls that could be imminent. Some persons are of the notion that godly relationships are cold and boring, they're icy, and there's no spice, it's just bland and blah. But we want to dispel some of that notion this afternoon as well. We have a really rounded panel of persons who have various experiences in terms of how long they've been married. And we're going to hear from them in a little bit. I'll tell you who they are. You can sense the level of expectation and anticipation around this. But that's a good thing. Keep it going. Right now, I just want to pause again just to encourage you to share this link with someone. Have them subscribe to our YouTube channel, Andrew's Memorial. Okay, have them subscribe to our YouTube channel and turn on that notification bell. So whenever we go live, you will know, and you can just simply click on that link and join us. So you don't have to miss a beat. Okay, so our couples are standing in the wings to share with us this afternoon their experiences. They're going to share in this dialogue on creating healthy Christian relationships. For those of you who are joining us online, maybe you're joining by YouTube or you're in the Zoom, you're on our Zoom link. Here's a question that I want you to respond to. Should Christians engage in prudent online dating? You know, so online dating was this, for some people, it was taboo some time ago. For some persons, they were a lot more open and receptive towards it. But maybe in this environment, it is going to be more of a thing, more of a norm than an exception. What are your thoughts on the matter of online dating? We may have seen a couple talk shows where persons pursued online dating and they were left holding the bag. Pretty much what they thought they were getting was not the reality. What are your thoughts? Should Christians engage in prudent online dating? While you are responding to that question, I'm going to hasten to introduce our couples. We have Nilvern and Christina Mitchell. You should see them anytime now. We also have Winston and Faylene Lawson. We have Rayon and Kadeen Salmon. You can tell by the bright smiles and the warm embrace that they are still in love with each other. How cool is that? So there's no boredom around here, you know, people. People are still fresh in love. Them not bored, them not icy, them not cold. And I have a feeling that they may want to throw in that, you know, something spontaneous. They may want to just do something that will just confirm and solidify what I'm saying here. I see Sister Lawson, you see her smile. All right, let's stay tuned for what they have in store for us. And finally, we have Lascelles and Janice Watson. All right, so again, we have Milvern and Christina Mitchell, Winston and Faylene Lawson, Rayon and Kadeen Salmon, Lascelles and Janice Watson. And they're gonna kick things off for us. Just open your mic. And I have, you know, I want you to answer a quick few questions for our audience right off the bat, just to kind of, you know, get their appetites going even more. All right, so you're gonna tell us how long you've been married, how long you dated before you got married, and how did you meet each other. So listen, this whole idea of love and relationships, you could talk about it for hours and hours and hours, and everybody's love story is their love story, and it is a beautiful story. And when they talk about it, they get emotional and they get mushy, and you know, they conceive other children and all of that good stuff. But we have a time constraint that we want to make sure we pack as much in for the benefits of our viewing audience. And I want us to share as much as possible in a short time so that persons can really come away feeling enriched and benefited. So you can decide among yourselves who will do the talking. But the question is, you're going to introduce yourself and tell us how long you've been married, how long you dated, and how did you meet each other. So we're going to start in this particular order: Nilvern and Christina, Winston and Faylene, Rihanna and Kadeen, and Lascelles and Janice. So you may come in that order. Can't wait to hear this. Milvern and Christina? All right. So let me just jump.
Hello.
There they are.
Hi.
Hi.
Afternoon, welcome.
It's good to be here.
Welcome. We're happy to be here. It's a privilege. We're actually on the move, doing our ministry, but it's never too busy just to participate.
Awesome. A couple that works together in the work of the Lord stays together, eh?
Amen.
Right.
Amen.
Tell us now, give us some of the juicy details. Tell us how you met, how long you've been married. Give us some of that perspective so we can have an appreciation of your journey.
So we have been married 4 months now, to be exact. We have met a little bit more than a year.
Mm-hmm.
So everything quick and fast, you know what I mean? I mean, we were led.
We were led.
Yes,
Okay.
we were introduced by friends, mutual friends.
So what happened is I was invited to Bible study one Sabbath. And I thought it would just be the couple and myself, the three of us. But unbeknown to me, that invited someone else. And it turns out to be Mr. Mitchell here. And as they say, the rest is history.
Wow. So I want to ask you some other questions, but let me just allow the others to come in with their introduction because this sounds really spicy. There is a lot more that I want to unearth.
Okay.
So you have been married for 4 months and you dated for a year.
Mm-hmm.
And you met each other through a Bible study.
Yes.
How romantic.
Right?
Couldn't be more romantic.
It's the word of God.
Yes.
That's where romance starts.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna jump over now. Thank you for sharing to Winston and Faylene. We're gonna hear their bits.
Well, we are Winston and Faylene as Lawson, as you know. Go. We have been married now for 25 years. Yeah. And we dated, in those times it might have been courted, for a year and a half. And how we met? That's a story and a half. I'm going to try to be as brief as I can. But our meeting was a sort of cursory one. Just he had to take some friends to my mother's funeral. I don't know him. There were some colleagues from my workplace who wanted to attend my mother's funeral, and he was the available person. They asked him to come along. Now, before that happened, though, my mother had been praying for a partner for me. And it so happened that I returned home one day. She was sick, was with me. I returned home one day, and we usually make a little sound to tell me that she's still alive because I was expecting her to pass off anytime. And at that time, I didn't get any sound from her that day. And I went in, but when I went in, she was praying. And I stood by her bedroom door and listened. And she was praying for God to find a partner for me. But it was a very strange phrase that she used. Lord, provide a lamb in the ticket for her. I said, lamb in the ticket. That is Isaac and Jacob and Isaac, Abraham. Anyway, that being so, he had to take some persons, the colleagues of mine, to my mother's funeral. And that was way in Westmoreland. And having done that, when they told me, my colleagues told me what happened, I said, somebody really took you that far? So I said, no, that was a kind person. I have to say thanks to that person. And I inquired, would I be doing anything that is untoward because I don't know if it's a married person or whatever. And they said, no, he's a single young man. He took us there. I said, that has to be a very kind person. No, nobody would do that sort of selfless act just so. Because Westmoreland, Lambs River, rural, way in the hills, and that sort of thing. Anyway, he took them there. And so I inquired how I could get to say, thank you. And I was given the information as to how to contact him. So it was through a phone call, and he came by me. I invited him on my veranda. We sat, we chatted, and then I said, my reason for calling you is to say thank you, because you did such a selfless, kind thing to take those friends to my mother's funeral. And that was it. And so he said, well, if you have anything else to do in Montego Bay, Westmoreland, I would gladly take you along. So I said, okay, I will, whatever. If it so happen, I will call you again. And that was it. So when he had to go to Montego Bay to collect his brother who was coming in from Canada. He didn't know much about Montego Bay. So he called me and asked if I could accompany him, which I did. And that from then, the rest is history. Yes, things developed.
History. Wow,
Yes.
wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's very insightful. I see you all the time. You're both singers and very involved in ministry in the work of God. But that context as to how you came together to be this united couple, it's very, very, very enlightening and just beautiful. So thank you for sharing your story with us. And we have more to hear from you, more spice and juice to extract out of these 25 years. That's a significant amount of time. All right, so we're gonna jump over now to Rayon and Kadeen.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Sabbath. We've been together for
about 4 years. Married for over a month.
Right.
Wow.
All right. So we met at Advent Fellowship, ADFEL, Friday evening program. It was after the end of ADFEL, where they normally tell you to hug 5 and get to know 1. But for her, she came as 2, but I got to know her more. So yeah, so we met as at ADFEL.
Wow. For a moment, I thought you were telling our love story. We met at ADFEL too. And that same Hub 5 story that ADFEL carry on, you see? All right, thank you so much for sharing. So let's hear now from Lascelles and Janice. I feel like Janice is going to do the talking here, I feel like Janice is going to do the talking.
No, the lot fell on me. The lot fell on me to talk this one. So let me tell you real quick. It's a very easy story. We've been married for 16 years. We quoted about 4 years before we got married. 4 years. And how did we meet? We met at a wedding. I was supposed to be the host. I was MC for a wedding, and Janice was at the wedding. And there was something that I wanted to do in the wedding, and I wanted someone that I did not know, that the bride didn't know, but that bride knew that I did not know, and I wanted to use her in the wedding just to really spice up the presentation. I saw Janice. I didn't know her, and I basically knew everybody for the group because the group and I were really good friends. So I went over to her as the MC, trying to work on my program, but all along she was just admiring me, my natural bulky physique. She was admiring that, and I get to say this. It's my right to say this. And so when I came over to her, I asked her name. She told me her name, but she had a plan all along. So she told me that that I should know her because she and her sister came to my church and I walked them around before. I've never met this girl, but I thought I was at fault because I was just out of a very serious accident where I was unconscious for about 2 weeks. I had severe memory loss after that accident, so I figured that maybe she was a victim of the memory loss. Nothing like that. She actually mistook me for somebody else. Nobody else has ever mistaken me for this guy. Nobody else. She's the only one who did. But we met at the wedding. That's why I met her, and we spoke at the wedding. And I did what any normal, very profound and powerful man would do. I asked her friend for her number at the end of the end of the wedding. Her friend said no problem, she will get me the number. Got me her number after. And well, her friend said she'd have to ask and say, man, just tell her it's me, and I'm sure she's gonna give me the number. So said, so done, and I got the number. When I called, I learned that she told her mother to give me her personal number. Do you see the divine hand of God in all of this? So her mother gave me her number, and let's say go.
Continue.
Okay, thank you. And then I called her, and after that first phone call, we started talking in 1990. Oh, we started talking in 1 year. We talked until the following year, and that long call, we recognized that we had a lot to talk about. We're still talking. We're still talking today.
Wow. That sounds very compelling and very colorful, you know, very, very colorful. Janice, are you going to say anything? Are you confirming or denying any of this? I know you may not want to upstage your husband on the World Wide Web. Is this how you remember it, since there have been talks of amnesia? Is this how you...
not exactly, but I'll let him get away with what he has said for now.
Okay, you'll deal with him afterwards. All right, no problem. Thank you so much for sharing that. Quite intriguing. You know, all the stories. And have you been able to just listen to the beauty and the diversity in the stories, just how people have met and how their unions came together, and the number of years and months that they have now been together? You know, there's a very interesting fun fact that I just learned. Janice, I knew you were a twin. Yes. The Lascelles, how did you navigate that? And is it Katie, you're also a twin?
Yes.
Yeah. So Rayon and Lascelles, how did you know them differently? Like, you know, what was that like?
I mean, jumping before Rayon, I always admired Rayon because I saw them coming to Sabbath school. He came with both sisters. So I'm saying, I thought maybe related or something. So Rayon, big props to you. But for me, it was ridiculously easy. I met Janice. And I knew her 1 full year before I even met her sister. Yeah. Her twin was in Taiwan at the time when I met her. So we spent 1 year together, an entire year together, just me and her. So I did what the bankers normally do. We study the original so we can know account for each other, you see. So I had 1 full year to study her, know all her features. And then when I met her sister for the very first time, we spent a whole day together. It wasn't planned, but it just worked out that way. So when I met her sister, I did see the resemblance. I saw that they were twins, but I knew
personalities were different.
That right. I knew Janice so well. I could tell the things that were different. I could, you know, so they couldn't confuse me after meeting them in this manner. I don't know how Orion got away.
The act didn't work for you. The sister act couldn't work for you at all.
They couldn't work. Couldn't work.
Let's hear your story, Orion. What was that like for you?
For me, I guess I had my eyes on the prize. So so for me, they looked different. So even though persons might confuse them, for me, I fixed my eyes on the prize. So they were, even though we used to go to church together and stuff, it's hard to separate them somewhat, but at times I do my utmost best to at least, you know, separate them at some point so that I can have some quality time and get to know more about Katie outside of Katie. But their personalities as well, totally different. So it's for me, it wasn't very difficult for me being on the inside.
Okay, all right. Well, that's good insight. That's good information to have. So let's see how our viewing audience is doing with our chats right now. So we had asked the question, should Christians engage in prudent online dating? And the responses have been coming in. 77% of our participants have said yes, and 23% said no. I'd love to know, you know, what's the reason behind, you know, responses. If you can drop that in. For those who said yes, no, you know, if you could just drop in the chat why you said what you did, just so that we can have, you know, some insights as to your position. Because again, we want this to be a very informative and educational session for all those who are on now and all those who will join and watch this as a delayed broadcast. All right, so we're gonna jump back to our couples. I still want to see y'all, you know, listen, you see when you're around there blushing, when y'all telling each other story, I want to see it. I want to see the cheeks turn red, so you don't get to be off camera. All right, so, all right. So tell us now, Sister Faylene and Brother Lascelles, you are the longest on this journey of marriage. Tell us how different you are now as individuals 25 years later versus when you started this journey of marriage. You're on mute.
So apart from the obvious fact of being 25 years older, which is a significant difference, I think we have, in a profound sense, grown. There's a sense in which you don't forge a successful relationship over this length of time, especially one founded in the Lord, without, in some small way, growing to be more like Jesus. There's a sense in which a relationship requires you to sacrifice some of your own self-interest, some of your own preferences, some of your own wishes, so that the wishes, the interest of your partner can be fulfilled. And to that extent, you learn to stay away from selfishness. Love, it is said, bears all things, endures all things, does not seek its own. Love is kind and patient. In this sense, you're not going to stay together unless you grow in these traits. And therefore, I think personally that I have grown in all of these qualities. I think I'm more patient now than I was when we started. She may claim responsibility for it, and I'm not disposed to disagree with her. But if the thing is going to work, if you're going to stay together, then, and you're going to stay together harmoniously and meaningfully, then these are going to have to be changes which unfold and which develop as the Lord deals with us. So I think we are wiser, we're older, we have more experience in how to, as I say, sacrifice your own preferences. And in that sense, we have grown mellower, we have grown kinder, we have grown to know one another better. And as a result of that, I think we are growing in Christ together.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. You know, like, so when you shared that a while ago, it reminded me of a phrase that a very good friend of mine had used with me several years ago when we just got married. And she said to me that marriage is a ministry. And, you know, having been in it, I can attest to the fact that that is in fact so, because you are developing on the fruit of this. We spoke about patience. That's a very big one. And maybe the other husbands here will attest to that as well, because for some reason, you know, women and some men may agree that women have this unique ability to help you to be better men, full stop. And one of the ways we do that is to help you to be more patient, more kind, more loving, and to dig deep in your creative bag to come up and reinvent yourself and make things continue to work. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. All right, so in the chat, I am seeing where one of our participants has said that she believes this conference needs to do more for single persons. And I agree with you. And this program is actually a response to us wanting to do more for single persons, because the objective here is to help to encourage and to educate and to inform our singles around the importance of marriage and how to go about forming healthy, wholesome relationships. And you will learn that through the experiences that you will hear from the various couples. So stay tuned. I'm sure the Lord has something uniquely packaged in store for you. And let's just jump on in now, because we do have quite a distance to go and a lot of juicy information to extract. So I want to hear from you. Let's talk to us a little bit about, so our newlyweds, new kids on the block, fresh from the altar, virtual or otherwise. How different was your wedding from your original expectations prior to COVID-19? And what does that, what should persons take away from that experience? So how different was your wedding from your original expectations prior to COVID-19? Maybe you had childlike dreams of wanting your wedding to be a certain way. How did that differ with the advent of COVID-19, and what is it that you would want to say to persons that they can take away from that experience that you will share with us? That goes out to our newlyweds. Who wants to start first? Should I just choose one, or will you go? Let's take you in the order that you were married. So Rayon, and then we'll hear from Milburn and Christina. So Rihanna and Katie, you get to go first. You're 1 month. That's a significant. We used to celebrate anniversaries, before we got to anniversaries. So
we did.
We definitely did.
One of the major differences, I think, for us mainly was the amount of persons that could be there physically. So that was the main difference, as well as we didn't get to celebrate as long as we would have wanted.
Time.
What to take away from it? To be flexible, and life is not always going to be what you planned, but it can still be enjoyed nonetheless.
Yes, definitely agree with that, especially about the flexibility aspect of it. Just funny story, I don't know if it's funny, but even just before the wedding day, we had a tropical storm.
Yeah.
We had the restrictions being changed. we had so many things happening. We had people canceling.
People telling us to cancel.
The day before, people telling us to cancel. Vendors who should be doing the stuff for us cancel on us the day before, the evening before. So being flexible and is one takeaway as well, and having good friendship or forging good friendships with persons also will help to that support system, right, will help you along the way. So having a good support system is always good.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing that. Before Milburn and Christina jumps in here, how did you know that you should still continue with this whole plan of getting married in spite of all the adversities that you shared? Because there is a school of thought that if it is that you find that too many things are working against a plan that you have, it may be a sign that you just need to back off and call it a day. Throw in the towel, call it a day. But what was your conviction that led you to continue on this journey anyhow?
Well, I think for me, with all that was happening, I'm telling you, even up to a week before the wedding, we still weren't sure of the date. But I had a sense of calm within me, which I tend to rely on my instincts a lot. I had a sense of calm, and Ryan as well, he had a sense of calm. And it's like we knew for sure that regardless of what was happening, we were still gonna get married that within a week somewhere.
Yeah, and this is so funny because one of the things as well is I actually, because I messaged the pastor and I asked him to also pray for us while we prayed, even the night before, and we prayed for sunshine. And remember, I said it was a tropical storm, so it was forecast that the day after we'll have rain. and we prayed for sunshine, and believe me, it was,
The sun was so hot.
The sun was too hot, pretty much on the day. But yeah, so prayer does go a far way, and actually knowing your partner, having that calming influence on each other will also help that support system.
That's awesome. So answers to prayer, you know, God gave you the sign. He sent the sun in full force as a confirmation of his approval. That's really nice. All right, so let's hear now from Rayon and Kadeen. How did you adjust your plans as a result of the time we're living in? Tell us. How was it different from how you had imagined it to be?
Oh, thank you. It actually surpassed our expectation because we opted for a very small wedding, and our friends and our support system made it very big. When we got to the church, it was already decorated for us, and that's something that we didn't plan because we just planned to do something very small, the pastor or witnesses, and the church was decorated. One of our friends came with a camera to take a lot of pictures we didn't even expect, but it just happened that way, and we definitely saw God's hand on the day and even before and after.
Yeah, personally, I can't say that COVID has affected it. And in fact, with or without COVID, I think I would have done it no different.
And that's one thing that that's what I appreciate with him. We had the mutual understanding that we wanted a wedding and we wanted it small. So with or without COVID, as he said, it would have been the same. But God really came and he showed up and he showed out more because we prayed for one thing, but God said, what? No, man, I give some more things. So we thank God for that.
Awesome. So he has surpassed your expectations. Lascelles and Janice, over there chatting up a start. You see them still dating, they're dating still. Evening live broadcast, they're dating. How sweet. All right, so talk to us a little bit, Janice and Lascelles, because you are teenagers in this whole journey of marriage, 16 years, and you also have a teenager. She's in high school, right? Yes. So tell us a little bit how this journey has changed you, from an individual perspective, collectively as a couple, and then as parents. Give us some insights, because they're views, right? So persons are of the view that you should wait before you have a child. So once you've gotten married, you should wait a little bit before you throw a kid in the mix. Some persons, for them, it's neither here nor there. Let's just get on with it and just have the full-on experience right off the bat. What was it for you? Did you wait before you had kids, before you had your daughter? And how has this journey changed you individually, collectively, and from the perspective of parents as well?
Well, I think our journey has been up and down. And for me personally, as an individual, I used to be fiercely independent. I still am in some respects, but I have learned since getting married to depend more on my husband, rely more on him to do things. Even though I still have to remind him several times, eventually it gets done. All right, Tamara. I feel like I've grown as well. I've grown as well to let the little things go. I used to hold on to every little thing, and but eventually you have to let the little things go. With somebody that has a personality like Lascelles, you can't stay mad forever because he has a perpetual smile on his face and he's always telling some joke, right? So you know that you have to either join him in the joke or stay mad in the corner. So I learned that, early on in our courtship and marriage. We waited until 5 years to have Savannah, but it was not a wait that we would have wanted. We had difficulty conceiving, but thank God a miracle child came along 5 years after, which was Savannah, because we were wondering if we needed to explore other options. So I would actually encourage couples, especially young couples, We got married young. I was 25. How old were you, Leslie?
28.
Oh, my.
I was young.
Yeah.
Breast milk was still fresh on my breasts.
Yeah, we need to censor lessons now. Censor. Yes. So we were pretty young, right? And we had a lot of goals, a lot of dreams. You know how we are when we're young, fresh, newly married. You have so many things you want to achieve before you start carrying children into this world, etc. And we accomplished most of them. And when we wanted to start our family, we had an issue. But through prayer and patience, it actually happened. And we thank God for the blessing of Savannah today. She's actually 11, so she's a preteen. And we're learning every day to deal with her. And you know, the preteen issues that come along with it. But we have grown as a couple and as parents as well. We lean on each other more, especially when dealing with Savannah. So we deal with her as a unit as opposed to individually as much as possible. So yeah, we're more dependent on each other, I can say.
Janice, you just shared a very intimate bit of detail, just know in terms of, your journey to conceiving Savannah. There may be other persons who are having similar situations right now. You had that particular journey for 5 years. How did you navigate through that? Like, what tips, what pointers, now that you've come out on the other side, what can you share with other persons who are probably going through the same thing right now and probably could do very good with some perspective and clarity that your experience could add value to right now?
Well, one thing is that the couples now have much more options than we had back in 2005, heading into 2010 when we had her. The options were a little bit more limited for us. So you can explore options now because IVF and all of these things are more accessible and to me are a little bit cheaper than back when we were trying. And also don't forget, patience is key. You're not going to get this wonderful bundle of joy overnight. And the more you put work into it, the better you come out on the other side. And I can say that the blessing has definitely been there. With the patience also comes tolerance, and you have to lose some of the expectations as well. And a lot of us have an expectation of what the timeline we want to have our child, the timeline we want to have this, to buy a house, car. You have to lose that. When God decides to bless you with the gift, that is when it will enter your life. So I had to lose all of those expectations. And another point I want to stress is just how influential people can be on young couples' marriage and even older couples' marriage, especially when they're trying to conceive. We got a lot of feedback, positive and negative. And we had to learn how to navigate through that, how to keep the good ones and to discard the negative ones. We got a lot of other ideas and advice as well from older couples, persons who also struggled and faced certain situations that we were dealing with at the time. So it's good to reach out and it's good to speak to other couples who are close to you that you can confide in and that will keep your information confidential. But we had a lot of negativity as well. So we had to learn how to, to discard that and put that to the back of our minds and move forward.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. So Lascelles, I just want you to say something on that point as well from a male's perspective, because men tend to be a little bit different in the way they respond to these events. For the males who may be going through that, what from an emotional standpoint, if you're open to sharing, what pointers can you share with someone who is facing that situation right now?
Firstly, I must admit that it can cause you to begin to question your own masculinity and wonder about the value of your libido. So I would advise every male to really speak with God, because irrespective of how a child is conceived, I believe every conception is the single time that humans get a chance to become God and join in the act of creation. So he must have a very, very integral part in the whole journey of having a child. So you need to spend quality time in prayer, ask the Lord for what you want. And I think if God has the power to part the Red Sea, he can give you a baby in his time. So I really believe it is very important to stay close to God and be able to block out the noise. Unfortunately, a lot of people within our church who have a good heart and they really do mean well, but they can really cause depression to engulf you. Look what happened. 1 year and nothing. What's going on?
2, 3 years and I have a baby yet.
What? Come on, listen, you want me to tell you what to do? So you really need to, and I really think it is not I think it's a good idea to have some quality time before a child comes, because there are things I could enjoy before my daughter comes. And I'm happy, I love my child, but she being around have robbed me of some very special moments, but we have to take time out to really enjoy your spouse before a child comes, because when the child comes, a different dynamic. I mean,
you just have to find more creative ways to make it work and adjust your time and your expectations. Not everything has to be a marathon.
I love spontaneity, so that is one of the biggest things that I lose. I like stealing I can't get into those right now. I'm sorry. There's a slot for that? No problem. I can't. I'll speak on those later on. But
Tamara has to take a drink of water.
Right?
So it's pray about it and enjoy the process until the Lord is ready to bless you.
All right, thank you so much for that. So I want to hear from Faylene and Winston on this whole matter. But just before Winston and Faylene comes in, I want to make sure that our viewing audience, you're still with us. It's a good thing I'm doing this virtual, because you have to cough when you're in COVID time, you can't cough. So I have a question. Another question for those of us who are joining and are in the chat. Share with us what you believe are some creative ways that young people can still find love in church in spite of the COVID constraints. So yes, we have restrictions in terms of the number of persons who can physically meet, all kind of things happening. We're aware of the multiplicity of them, but from where you sit, are there creative ways? Are there still creative ways that people can use to can be engaged in to find love? And can you share some of those? Because some of our young people, they're at various stages, some are on the fence, not sure whether or not they want to do this. Some are ready to go all the way in, but they're just waiting on the right person to manifest themselves. We're a community that's here to help each other. So jump in and share some. Thank you so much. Share with us in the chat, what you believe are those creative ways that persons can engage in to find love in spite of the COVID environment. So Winston and Faylene, expectations. When you started this journey 25 years ago, how did your expectations coming in differ from the reality that you had to deal with? And share with us in that vein so we can see what we can learn. I'm just 12 years, so I still have lots of learning to do. I see the blush now, boy, them fresh still 25 years and they're still in love. I hope anybody out there don't think so married people boring and cool, You see how they're still chirpy and warm towards each other? That's just really sweet. They're admirable. The glow is still there. So tell us about expectations when you started and the reality you had to contend with.
To be perfectly honest, I don't believe that there has been any major disappointments when we got married. Certainly I can tell you what I was expecting and hoping and intending to work for is that love or affection for one another would not decrease. that expectation has been met. And I think that has undergirded everything else that has happened in our marriage. It may be that some of the material goals, some of the educational goals, some of the social goals we had were not met in exactly the way we wanted, at exactly the time we wanted, but those were secondary. We wanted growth in the Lord, and we wanted to maintain an affection, a level of affection, which could bear all things, as I said earlier. And I believe that those expectations, those hopes, those aims were largely met. And we give God thanks for that. Anything else?
I am alone because as an only child.
Not hearing you so clearly, Faylene.
I am alone now. As an only child, I had to be my best friend. And so, I wasn't sure there would be anybody to replace me, my best friend. But then meeting Carl, he too, he had certain dreams and expectations as myself. And we were able to share space. I was able to surrender some of my individual preferences to accommodate him. And the only thing I missed probably is that he doesn't quarrel. So if anything, I have to be, I'm the one to quarrel with myself, and then it goes. But he's quieter than I am, so to speak.
What she means is I don't quarrel in the way people normally quarrel. We do it in a very considered and very structured way. And the fireworks sometimes attend quarreling. Doesn't happen in our marriage.
No.
We manage to sail above that. And I think there's a level of maturity which shows itself in the way we relate to one another day by day. As I said, selflessness is an important dimension of any marriage of this type. And if you bring that to your marriage, pretty much any goal you have can be made to come to pass with God's help. And so, as I said, I had some dreams when we got married. And so far as the most important of those dreams are concerned, I consider them met. And I am deeply grateful to her and to God for that.
I had deliberately asked God to provide me with someone who would help me to grow spiritually. And to tell the truth, that was an answered prayer. So with that I was able to submit myself. I was able to, have that that growth that I wanted. And today, it continues. He's my best friend. And I can always rely on him. Very reliable. I can say it to his face. He's very reliable. And he keeps his word. And that was part of the plus in my relation. That has been part of the plus in our relationship.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. So I think the way you started that whole discussion a while ago, it's basically answering a question that I had here to ask you, which is what are some of the key characteristics to look for in a godly spouse? And you would have shared a few of them since we started this discussion. You stressed the importance of patience, selflessness, the willingness to put your own desires and preferences secondary to somebody else's own. And that's going to be very key if you want to stay married. If you even want to get married in the first place, and failing, you had to surrender some of your own individuality and preference to the extent that you had to stop relying on yourself so much, being an only child. I guess you must have spoken to yourself quite a bit. But you had somebody else to talk to and to have them sharing your journey and have them witness to your life as well. So that's deep. I want to hear the others chiming in on this. So what are the key characteristics from your perspective that persons should look for in a godly spouse? And I don't want you who are listening to underestimate the significance of this question. You would have heard the experiences that our couples shared. You would have heard them talking about challenges around conceiving. You would have heard them talking about personal preferences that they had to do away with. You heard them talking about values such as selflessness, and those are not easily achievable, especially with our sinful nature. So if it is that we want our relationships to work, there are things that we will have to do away with, and there is a certain manner in which we would have to aim to have our relationship started and continue, so we can experience that level of fulfillment and joy that all of our couples continue to experience. And in particular, Faylene and Winston, since they're the longest married at 25 years, people would probably think that that sounds like a recipe for burnout and for fire to be completely out, and the fire spot to be completely wet, like how Elijah did wet up the Mount Carmel place right there. So, but clearly that's not the case for them. They never had an 1844 moment, no great disappointment, but still, they still had to make some amount of adjustment and change to make things work. So talk to us a little bit more, each of you, about key characteristics to look for in a potential spouse. I want to start with the newbies first, and then we can work our way up. We did hear from Faylene and Winston already, just based on what they said just now. So we'll hear from Rayon, Kadeen, then we'll jump to Nilver and Christina, and Lascelles, you can chime in as well, because we really want persons to come away with, you know, a wholesome meal, you know, of this session this afternoon. So talk to us.
All right. Well, seeing that you said godly spouse, it's a bit explanatory in its term, but in terms of the key thing is for me is character. Who the person is outside of your presence. So for me, it's her personality trait. Is that person loving? Is that person caring? How does the person treat her parents, her friends? How do they interact? And so by their fruits you shall know them. And so by seeing them outside of your presence, you know what type of person that you will be getting involved with. So you can't really fake around your family. And you're not really too fake around your friends as well. But so that's one of the things for me. I look at those in terms of how selfless is that person as it pertains to others, or care, the level of care towards others.
Okay, that's deep, that's profound. All right, thank you for sharing. Let's hear now from Nilvern and Christina.
Like my brother before, it just took everything that I was about to say, like every hunch, every single piece.
The Spirit of God is here.
But the main thing for me though, it's the fruit of the Spirit. You know what I mean? Because once you have a tree and it's bearing, then you'll be able to identify it. So you know what you're looking for. First of all, the wise man Solomon, he speaks of a virtuous woman, and I'm sure that every man said that they want a virtuous woman. But one of the questions that I ask myself is, am I qualified to have a virtuous woman? But if you notice, when he speaks of a virtuous woman, it's not just somebody who treats her husband nice, but she treats everyone nice. And she represents him, because when we got married, she took on my name. So if she goes out by the road and she does something wrong, it affects me just as much as it affects her. So that was one of the things that I took in consideration, how she treat others, and all of that, because, somebody can always treat you good, they can always try to impress you, but the best way to observe a person is how they treat others, because I believe that love is unconditional. And if you're going to treat me a certain way and you're going to be partial towards me, I can't see you as being real. So how you treat others really matters to me.
Definitely. And what I would say from my perspective, I leaned more so to the counsels. I would recommend reading Adventist Home. I leaned wholeheartedly into the counsels and into scripture to make my decision, to say yes, Nilvern was the one. So definitely for him to love God more than me, I know that I would be in safe hands. So that would be my response.
That cute, that key in safe hands. It's important for people who are in money management. You want to know that your money is in safe hands, because that you have a lot of future goals and aspirations resting on that. But it's also important for your heart to be in safe hands. And what safer hands can they be in than somebody whose life is ordered after God's will? So for those who are online, I'm going to share a text with you that you can do some further reading on, just to help you with some perspective and context around choosing a godly spouse. You can look at Genesis 24, verse 1 to 4. That's a story of Abraham and how he had gotten old, and he had his eldest servant promise him that he would have his son, his only son Isaac, the son of promise, choose a wife who was of their own culture, their own heritage, and not a woman of the heathen nations. And that is very significant, especially for us as Christians, because as Faylene and all of our other couples, as Faylene and Winston and ourselves, that 16 and 25-year-old couple, just because of the longness of how long, I made up a word, right? How long they have been together. It helps you to see things from a different perspective. The person who you end up marrying has a lot to do with the future that you will have. They can either make or break you. And since our goal as Christians is to make it to heaven, ultimately we would want to have somebody on that journey with us who has the same objective, because as the Bible said, two can't walk unless they agree, right? You don't want a tug and war situation. So it's very important to ensure that your personal goals and interests, as far as your spiritual life with God is aligned with whoever you're going to choose to be that long-term partner with you as you continue on this journey of life. So Lascelles and Janice, tell us a little bit from your perspective about those characteristics to look for, share, especially for our younger audience who may be in the valley of decision right now. They probably are even engaged already and still have those, but say something that can help them to be enlightened and come away feeling, having some clarity.
I must admit that a godly spouse is extremely important. Two things I want to highlight. I know Janice has some story, but I have two things to tell you that I think was very important in us making a decision that we're gonna get married. When a year after I met Janice, she had to go to Taiwan on a foreign missionary trip. And when I look into what it demands to be a foreign missionary, you're going to leave your home and your friends and go all the way to this country where you don't even speak the language. And we remained in touch while she was away. And she was doing some massively wonderful things. They were planting churches, they were doing crusades, they were preaching sermons. And I'm saying, wow, that is major, major, major stuff. And then when she came back, I remember we went to Kencut for a program, NAPS, National Association for the Prevention of Starvation. That's it? Yes. Oh, mercy, man. That program floored me. That program floored me when I get a better look at what people go through and what foreign missionaries were willing to do. And once I saw that situation, I'm seeing what she was willing to do with her time, because she never had to leave the comfort of her home, leave all her friends from NCU, and then they have enough. I said, all right, she has to be the one. Because if you are willing to do that for people that you don't know, then I think that I'd want to spend my time with you.
Just deeply admirable, deep, profound, I hope you all are being as encouraged as I am, and just really enthralled by the stories. So we're going to talk about another topic, another piece of this whole love pie, right? Cleaving and cleaving. What is that really? So Genesis 2 verse 24 says, for this reason, shall a man leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. Matthew 19:5-6. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no one separate. How do you understand this concept of one flesh? And how is it manifested in your relationship? I want to take you in the order that you're married. As and Katie. You're officially the blush champions of this meeting.
Yes. Getting used to this online thing. One flesh. For us, it means that whatever affects you individually affects you collectively. So for example, I am used to eating cereal, having probably one meal a day, the nice single life where you don't have to worry about cooking and all of those nice stuff. But being married, I now eat 3 meals a day. And I find myself cooking quite often. So you have to make those adjustments, realizing that you're not living just for yourself, but you're living for another you, so to speak. And it always interests me where 1 + 1 = 1. But for me, in my mind, I think God likes to multiply. So I always say it's 1 × 1, because he always likes to multiply your blessings. So I guess for us, having that oneness of one flesh is just recognizing that you're not just living for yourself, but affects one person, affects the other. So decisions that when we're making decisions, we try as best to make decisions together. We discuss things and ensure that we are most times on the same page, giving up sometimes your preferences and comfort, as most of the couples would have alluded to. It at times can be difficult, but once there's communication and stuff, then that one flesh becomes manageable.
And so add to that, my situation is a little bit, I like to put it as more complex, given that I'm a twin. So in response to the leave and cleave, I think that part was more of a difficulty for me mentally. I mean, yeah, so that is where I focus on mainly.
Okay. All right. So let's just do a temperature check of what's happening in the chat while we wait for Nilvern and Christina to jump in. So we asked the question, should Christians engage in prudent online dating? 67% of persons said yes, 32% said no. And I did see a response earlier up in the chat that spoke about algorithms and codes and so on that can't substitute for decisions guided by God. We try to put the best version of ourselves in the public so that, and that may not necessarily be the truth. So that's an interesting perspective. And we thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. So the online dating world, the views are mixed, persons see it differently, but isn't it just the medium? So if somebody had introduced you, as you heard from one of our couple, they were pretty much set up, right, to be together. If it is that you were invited to a meeting and you were introduced to somebody, wouldn't that the person who introduced you, wouldn't they be the medium through which you would have met? And online, the platform, wouldn't it just be the medium? You still have to do your due diligence. You still have to do your fasting and praying. You still have to know what your value system is and what it is that you're looking for, and prayerfully seek God's guidance. So, I would say online is the medium. It's not the end all and be all. You still have to do a lot more thereafter. And what you may find attractive, sometimes it may not be true, but as a Christian relying on God's guidance, He's not going to lead us in darkness. He will come to light soon. But I want to thank you for sharing your experience on that. And I want to just throw in another question, since we have responses coming in to that question. Let me just throw in another one here. What do you think about this whole idea of, being a matchmaker? If you happen to know that somebody is single and they're searching, and you know somebody else who, you believe could be a good fit for this person, do you believe it is your place to connect to them, to introduce them, to even do a sell job on the person, to get their interest going in each other? What are your thoughts on that? Let's hear from you in the chat. Should couples play matchmakers for singles, especially persons who've been around a longer time, and you see them grow up in church, them born, and you see them in your eyes, right? From baby stage all the way up, you see how they deliver themselves in church, across the different programs that you have had. Should you? All right, so while you're contemplating that question, I want us to hear from our other two couples now around this whole notion of leaving and cleaving. What does that mean for you? And I want, for the others of you who are going to chime in here, I want you to think about this also in the context of where you live, like physically living with a family member or your parents while you're married. How do you view that concept of leaving and cleaving? Or and this whole idea of one flesh into that whole geographic space as well. So how do you tie that all together? You want to leave and cleave, and this one flesh that you're becoming, what should that look like in terms of where you will live with family or otherwise? What are your thoughts on that? So Lascelles, you're up. Nilvern and Christina, and then Lascelles.
Okay. All right. So, one of my firm belief in going into marriage, I held on to the scripture, Amos 3 verse 3, that says, "Can two walk together unless they be in agreement?" So I held on to that. Definitely moving to be one was a non-starter, and actually moving to a different location, because we are from Kingston originally and we have moved to St. Elizabeth. We wanted to establish our own home, to have our own traditions, as my husband always say, a one king finna. A one king.
One bull in the tent.
Right, what he said. So
if I'm living in my dad's house, he's the man of that house. I can't be the man of that house. I am second in command.
You're the man of the room in the house that you occupy.
Exactly. So I want to be the king on that throne.
Right. So it definitely took some humility and understanding on both our parts, and also the two being one, that what Rayan said about communication. At one point, like when we just got married, probably a month after, I was like, Vern, say, I make a mistake, we'll make a decision, I'm never tell you. Or I'm do this, I'm never tell you. But we come to the understanding that we have some judgments over some things, whether we are in each other's presence or not. We're able to make some small decisions. It's a growing thing. I'm definitely learning from just Janice and Lascelles, learning. I would say that Vern has Lascelles' temperament. I would be there arguing by myself. I'm telling you.
One of the major problems I had, before Christina and myself began dating, I was dating before, was insecurity. People always think that I'm too friendly. And I'm genuinely so. Because if I'm at church, and whether it's a male or a female, I see a visitor for the first time, right? I'm going over, I'm going to introduce myself. I'm gonna find out how you're doing. Did you enjoy the day? But for some strange reason, persons always take notice whenever you go to the female, but not to the male. And then as a result of that, because of my personality, people tend to stick. You know what I mean? So most of who I was interested in at that point, they had insecurity. Now, one of the quality that attracted me to Christina was the fact that, she was that insecure. So when we started dating, I would be on the road driving and I saw a young girl while I was on the phone with Christina, and I could stop, pick up that young girl, and Christina would say, "Babes, I think I should come off of the phone. I think it's nice to give somebody a ride and I talk to me on the phone. Maybe God have a word for you. Fair. So call me back when you drop her off, and that was something that I admired. And likewise, she's a people person. When she go on the road, in fact, one of our friends, she often times says, "Steve, I love you, I love you." And I don't have to feel insecure about that because I know that she's genuine. You understand?
So I really do believe,
oneness.
Just to bring it home, what he's saying, I think the oneness happens even while we're courting or dating. The oneness is there. Before we got married, before God brought us together as man and wife, the oneness was there, and you would have picked up that trait, you would have seen a characteristic.
And there's similarity in characteristics.
Definitely. Over to you, Tamar.
Myself.
Right. As you shared a while ago,
hold on. And we both talk in our sleeps, which is very funny.
So who's listening?
Well, whenever I talk, she hear, and whenever she talks, I hear.
Nobody's
always a joke in the morning.
So Lascelles, I saw that you were squealing when that stone was being thrown earlier. Tell us, what is it about what was being said by New Vern that got you a while ago? I saw you had a reaction, very strong reaction.
No, I would just highlight it. I was just in total agreement with the gentleman. They said that people always see if we go and we're friendly to females, but we're friendly to both male and females. I am naturally shy, I am naturally shy. And and because I am not,
nobody believes that.
Because I'm naturally shy. The thing is, I believe that I believe with all my heart that what God has done for me, I know beyond the head of a doubt that God loves me more than anybody else. Because God has done so much more for me than others. I don't have a problem sharing with anybody, male or female. But it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate that people normally see. That's the part that really got me. People normally see if you're friendly to a female more than a male. Anyway, this is not my question to answer. This is one for gentlemen.
Yeah, but you're gonna continue on answering that question first about living and cleaving and one flesh, and that what that means in the context of where you live, and in terms of are you with your parents, if you're living with your parents, still all of that. What does all of that dynamic mean for marital relationship in the context of the guidance that scripture has given to us that we should leave, cleave, and become one flesh? What does all of that mean to you?
I'm stealing a bit of her response. This is her question, but I must tell you, for me, it's a different plateau for me altogether. I had to. It's a different dynamic, I think, when you're married to a twin. My brother can attest to that. When you're married to a twin that have a very close relationship with her family, it's a whole different ball game. So it took me a while to be able to deal with that dynamic. I had to understand that, yes, I'm married to Janice, but by virtue of the fact that I'm married to Janice, I'm married to her entire family. Normally, I don't have a problem with family, and that's very important to me. I believe that if I'm even dating a girl, I must know the mother and father very, 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 very well. And if I can't create a relationship that is strong with them, then I am beginning to struggle with my relationship with the very girl. So that was okay for me. But what I learned being married to a twin that has a close relationship with her family is that even times when I think it is just my time, I just my time now, I just me and she now, I still have to make generous room for her family. Anyway, I have to understand that she will call her sister 20 times for the day. Just to say, listen, you know, so go outside a while ago, I see a bird. It's the prettiest bird I ever see. And just accept that. I have to learn to, you know, navigate that. So I have to learn that part in the cleaving, the leaving and cleaving. That's the leave and cleaving part for me. With the two become one, I had to be an individual from I was very young, and I had to make some strong decisions for myself. And I believe that when you got married, you have to make a lot of strong decisions as the man of the house. I learned you have to learn and understand when you're married to someone who appears quiet, but is a serious, powerful woman beneath that quiet veil. I have to learn, but I was always very giving. I believe if God told us to love our women like he loved the church and he would give his life to the church, I have no problem giving up the rings. I have no problem in making a decision. And I have to understand that whatever decision is made, it is our decision. Sometimes I must tell the decisions that she makes, I struggle with, but you know, it's still something that I have to understand that is still, I have to make our decision. I have to allow her to make mistakes. And I have to be happy when she forgives me for my mistakes. But it's a learning process. And I don't believe that we could become one if we didn't live and cleave. We need to be at a place where even when you are close to the family, you still have to deal with each other. That's, you know, if you have a major argument, you need to wrap up as quickly as possible because she's the same person you're going home with and she's the same one you're going to be in the house with. So you try as best as possible to establish common ground so you can live with some semblance of harmony.
You know, thank you for sharing that. I want to hear Janice's take on this from a twin perspective. So, you know, you have a roommate, and I don't know how deep your bond is, but I've heard stories about twins where they feel vibrations from each other from miles away. I wonder if she was feeling anything that you were feeling at any point in time. But, you know, the fact that you have a twin and you would have been very closely connected. And I heard Lascelles talking just now about the generous room that he's had to make for family and so on. What did that do for you in terms of your willingness to adjust as well? Because, you know, you're different. So he made some adjustments to make room, but how was your adjustment to accommodate him and his needs in this relationship as well?
Well, in adjusting as a twin, to me, it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't any major adjustments because of the unique situation Venice and I were in. Lascelles indicated earlier that she was overseas, and she was overseas for a total of 7 years. She came out for the wedding and then never returned. But for the majority of our courtship, Venice wasn't really in the mix. It is only when we got married now, she came back for the wedding and decided to stay. And that is what created a little adjusting, a little unique situation in the sense that she'll be at our house every Sabbath. Because she's so used to being with me, we're so used to being together all the time. The transition from, you know, twin to marriage kind of didn't take place with us because she was not here. So yeah, she was at our house a lot, especially on the weekends. We would talk on the phone a lot as well. And it was normal to us. I didn't realize it was abnormal to him. He was not used to that. He did indicate to me sometime after that this is not something that I'm used to. And that is when I realized that, you know, maybe I need to temper it down a bit and probably include him more in the conversations and include him more in our space. But Venice and I have a kind of relationship that we can be there talking for hours and chatting about nonsense, literally, and anybody else around just disappears, you know, out of our conversation. That's our natural relationship. So I had to learn to include him in that kind of conversation, including him in our relationship. Know her separately and together with me. That took some time. That took some years, I think, to get over the little hiccups. And I think now we've been on good ground now for several years. So we've been married now for 16. So I think we've gotten used to that. He has gotten used to that. But initially it needed some adjustments.
Janice, so like the adjustment was he getting used to it. That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for the candid share, All right, let's hear from the last.
Well, as for us, I have a unique experience with the leave and cleave, because taking it from a denominational perspective, my husband was coming from another denomination.
Oh.
He is a Sunday worshiper. I was there too, but then I left. And when I found, new truths, and came into the Adventist denomination. And so now I had the stress to say what is going to happen here. And I was not willing to compromise to go back there. So I would want to think that some amount of pressure was placed on him, because I was not going to compromise and go back to the Sunday worship denomination. And so far,
Denise, your mic is still open.
With gentle persuasion and reading, I was very, what should I say now? I had to do what I think would appeal to him most. And because he is a deep reader, that was what I had to use, literature, to get him to, find his path with me. And so because of that, he was able to come on board, and we made it through till now. With the family issues, for me, leaving father, mother, that wasn't a problem, because he was mature enough and living on his own. So that wasn't a problem there. And to cleave with each other, that became normal, natural after, the religious section was settled, and we both had that sort of commitment to each other.
It's fair to say that when we decided we were going to get married, neither of us intended to surrender our religious practice. In fact, we had found a neutral place to get married. But as Faylene said, during those tumultuous times, I was forced to examine the issues surrounding some of the things I'd been ignoring about the sanctity of the Sabbath and so on. And through reading, through praying, halfway through making our plans, I became a Seventh-day Adventist. We actually got married 5 months after I was baptized into the church. And as a result of that, our wedding was largely an Andrew's affair. So leaving for me did have some kind of a natural meaning in terms of leaving from my own worship tradition to become Adventist. But I think the context of the passage is talking about leaving father and mother and cleaving to wife. The natural relationships which exist in young people before marriage is obviously that between the child and their parents, child and his parents or her parents. And what God was saying when he designed this brilliant this brilliant idea of marriage was that what I want to do is to set up a new autonomous center of living of life for the continuation of the species. And that is going to involve surrendering the primacy of the child-parent relationship, so that the relationship, not abandoning it, but causing the first relationship to be, the first human relationship to be between a man and his spouse. So together they can relate to parents, but their first responsibility is to one another. That is what I understand leaving and cleaving to mean. And obviously that becomes easier if you're coming from similar backgrounds, as spouses, as proposed or intended spouses. And certainly when I became an Adventist, some of the plans we had been making along the way had to be changed, and we could have a full-fledged, a fully developed Adventist affair into an Adventist marriage, which is what we actually experienced. So I can see it on a number of levels. Yes, there was the leaving, the worship tradition. As Phelan said, I was old enough, I was already living on my own. I wasn't living with parents, but still one had to surrender the primary responsibility or the primary relationship of child-parent and make it as a deliberate choice. Make that primary relationship to be one with your wife, one with your husband. And in the context of that cleaving, it means having a similarity of outlook, a similarity of aims, similarity of philosophy, so far as that is possible, or at least working towards a uniformity or unanimity of these outlooks on life. And that is part of the growth which has taken place in us. We've had separate kinds of backgrounds, but we have grown to harmonize our lifestyles and our outlooks on life, so that now we are more one than ever before.
Beautiful. I have a funny question for you. I want you to imagine for a minute, hard as it may be, that you weren't married yet. You were just dating each other, and you look like you still could be dating, still look fresh. The shine is still on the ball. I want you to pretend that you aren't married yet and you're just, you're just dating. You just have this attraction for each other. Tell us, how would you attempt to go about dating each other in this pandemic? And this is really a question that is aimed at helping persons who are really struggling with that idea right now. It may be a challenge to conceive since you're already married, but I want you to give it a go. Think about it. How would you go about dating in a pandemic? You're not yet married. You're not 25 years strong yet. How would you do it?
Well, I think many of the traditional things could still be done within the new context. You can still meet face to face, observing all the protocols, as they say, but it might require falling back on old skills, which perhaps most of us have lost. Talking to one another, writing letters, love letters, sharing ideas, sharing through different media. Technology, thankfully, has evolved to a stage which can be an almost self-sufficient alternative or replacement for the traditional things of meeting one-on-one. So yes, there is still the scope for getting together physically. And the advantage is perhaps the new environment actually helps to keep you out of trouble, in that it helps you to control the format of your physical getting together in a more structured way. So I think it is going to require communicating through all the channels which are available, and having a desire. People are going to get together no matter what. I mean, the inborn yearning and urge is always going to be there, and people are going to find ways to do it. I think larger technology has provided the outlets whereby this can be done, but we still haven't completely lost the opportunity, behaving responsibly, to get together physically and to talk I heard you discussing earlier, for example, online dating. That's a real possibility as long as one is very careful and responsible in how one does it. And when one is going to make the transition from online communication to in-person communication, how you manage that? Do you take trusted friends along with you for the first meeting until you are sure of your footing with this new person? I don't think dating has to be changed in any fundamental way. One just has to match and adjust the methods or the techniques to meet the new environment.
All right, thank you for that perspective. And I just want us to get an update on how the responses have been going in the chat since we posed that question about whether SDAs should play matchmakers for singles. Most persons say no, at 51% says no, and 49% says yes. And there is this note here from one of our responders. When you date, it shouldn't be a secret. The individual you're considering might be a close relative, who knows? Well, there's merit to that. It's good to be transparent, and you can get some insights as well. Another perspective here, yes and no for matchmaking, because the persons will make the final call. Make sure that the disclaimer is there, that it's their decision to continue in case it doesn't work out. All right, so thank you for your responses. Thank you for the activity in the chat, like that you're engaged. You can throw in any question that you have that you may want to ask, that you may want me to ask any of the couples. If we have time for it, then I will oblige, but you can go ahead, throw in any particular question that you may want to ask. And while you're doing that, I'd like you to also consider this question. With the increase in marital separations and divorce, has marriage become really overrated? Do you believe that? So what are your thoughts? Share with us. Do you believe that marriage has become overrated? Separations, divorces abound. Persons are not making it to a year in some cases, or they make it several years and they just decide to call it quits. Or maybe they haven't formally divorced, but they are separated. What do you really think about that? Share in the chat. Let's hear your thoughts on that. All right, so I want to jump to Nilvern and Christina because they're only married for 4 months. So they must have had some deep experience with this COVID environment and this whole idea of dating through this time. So tell us what that experience has been like for you, so we can see what nuggets our audience can gain from your experience.
Well, I want to tell you, COVID did a good thing for us. Because, when COVID came in, we recognized that prophecies were being fulfilled. And we need to start study the Bible no more than ever. So COVID kind of created the opportunity for us.
Too.
You know what I mean? And as the brother said before, you still meet face to face, being responsible. So I can't say that it really had affected us different. I've dated in the past before, and I can't really say it was any different. It's only that we probably didn't go out a lot, like maybe to the restaurants and those places, where, we know most of the restaurants have their protocols, where you had to social distance and all of that. And most of them were just for harder, you could not dine or anything, but we are both simple, and we just like to take nature walk. So we just made much of what we love to do, which is taking nature walk, driving out and all of that.
Yeah.
But you're more grounded spiritually because you would have spent more time in personal and
Yes.
And collective Bible study. Right. So that has been a positive for you.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, awesome. All right. Thank you for sharing that. Lascelles, jump in here and talk to us about this whole idea of premarital counseling. How important is that So I met someone, I prayed about it, I put it all on the altar to Jesus, and Jesus gave me the sign. I'm very convinced and convicted in my heart that this is the one, and I don't need to go anywhere else. And I'm moving ahead steadily to set the dates and full speed ahead because God has given me the answer. What are your thoughts on premarital counseling? Does that have any role or any significance? Should it be prioritized, irrespective of how you may feel that this is the one? Share with us.
I really think that premarital counseling is extremely important for any couple that's planning to get married. You really need to have somebody who is godly, who can really help to enlighten your darkness about some of these treacherous waters they're going to get into. Because marriage is a serious thing, very, very serious thing. I remember my marriage officer, he's no longer alive, God bless his soul, Pastor Reed. And I remember one thing specifically from our marriage counseling. Two things, I'll just share them really quick. The first one, he said, I remember him saying to us, always trying to improve the product try to be a better version of you. I love to cook. I think the kitchen is really what I want to be. When I grow up big, I'm going to be a cook. I seem to enjoy it. I love to cook, and I like to watch people's face enjoying the food that I cook. And so I love to cook. I genuinely love to cook. I didn't want my wife to know that because
Is he any good, Jenny?
He is excellent. He is excellent.
I didn't want her to know because I really wanted her to cook some other time if I don't feel like it too. But since I got married, the dynamic of our family changed. Things adjusted itself and we work. And before long, I find myself doing what I enjoy doing most. And my wife let me. And the truth is, for the most part, even when I mess up the meal, she don't make a big deal about it. And I truly appreciate that. Sometimes when I cook, I know it is not all that. I taste the food and I know, oh man, this is too salty. And she will still try to eat it. So I may be responsible for her diabetes, but she does try to enjoy the meals that I prepare, and I really appreciate that. Secondly, it helps. Premarital counseling can help you to be able to understand each other. I remember when I just met Janice, when we were just dating, she normally liked to wear button-down blouses, and she always actually have an extra button open. I had a problem with that. As far as I'm concerned, I think it should all be buttoned up to the neck. Hide everything. What are you doing?
Okay, James, guys.
And I remember bringing up that in the counseling session, and the pastor said to me, come on, if the lady have a lot to work with, she probably is hot, but I get so cool here. And that was it. I never had a problem with it. From that point on, I must tell you, even when I think that I'd let it bother me, I keep wondering to myself, I wonder if it's just for her comfort. And it can help me to get a better perspective on that. It may sound simple, but I was able to attach that to some other thing that she may do, and was comfortable with the thought that it may just be for her comfort. So I think it's important that you spend some time in marital counseling. And I'm going to throw something else in. Talk to people who have been married for a while. Believe me, the people who have been in the game for a while, they know, because let me tell you, there are things that, as though our faces may differ, the situation is the same. Talk to some people who were married before, and you'll get some very good advice how to go through the wonderful world of marriage.
Brilliant, brilliant. I love that. I love what you said a while ago. You know, you got clarity. So you had your own preconceived idea, but you got some clarity, and that's what premarital counseling helps to offer. It's somebody independent who's not, you know, they don't have the emotional attachment as you do, so they can.
I think he was on our side. I still think he was on our side.
So thank you for sharing that. There is a question in the chat that we cannot ignore because that's a very important question. Someone is asking, should you marry? Let me read it verbatim, you know, because I want us to get the essence of it, right? Should you marry someone if the potential in-laws are not in agreement with the union and has a personal dislike towards you? I want to hear the takes on this. Sister Phelan, you look like you want to give a stab at it. Should you go ahead? Proceed. Full speed ahead.
Operative phrase, leave and cleave. Leave your in-laws and cleave to the person that you are going to spend the rest of your life with. It could be a bit uncomfortable, but you have to maneuver for yourself. Your in-laws cannot live your life for you. And so I think they have their place. They have had their say in life, and they have chosen for themselves. And I don't think they should be barrier, or they should put up that sort of, they're allowed to put up that sort of, what you call it, resistance or obstruction for you.
So question for you though, while you're on that, so you're ultimately going to be the one to make the decision, and that decision you're saying will be informed by the fact that you will be living your life and so on. But how do you suggest one navigate that conversation? So this has come to your attention. How do you suggest it be approached by the person before they get to the point of making their ultimate decision as to whether or not they're going to proceed or just call it a day?
Well, there can be compromises, and I don't think anything beats talking to each other. They can you approach the problem with some amount of communication with in-laws and pray about things. Prayer has been known to move mountains, and so we can always navigate certain problems through communication. And I think the best thing is to speak to them and have them understand where you are and what you need for yourself.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So you're saying you're not going to just take this dismissive approach of saying, I'm going to live my life how I want to live it to the left, but you're going to engage some kind of conversation with them to understand their perspective, what may be driving this feeling that they have, and you discuss and see what amicable solution can be arrived at or compromise, and then you figure out what your ultimate decision will be. All right, so
I'd like to share in that I believe if there is an issue with the in-laws and the prospective wife or husband, the person who is related to the in-laws need to take a lead role in mending the fences, because there is no way that person can take a back, sit back and watch the relationships deteriorate. So that person needs to take a lead role and engage their family member in communication, active and otherwise, and find out what the root of the situation is. It may be something that can be solved quite easily. It also may be that the in-laws have an expectation. It's my one daughter, and I want her to marry a pastor, for example, right? So that person needs to engage with their family. And sometimes it has to be done one-on-one, separate from the other individual. And then when they reach that middle ground, they bring the other person in and then work through that process. But that individual needs to be upfront and take the lead in solving that issue, because that's a major problem for many marriages.
Absolutely, absolutely. I really like what you've added to this conversation, Janice, because it can really make or break, and especially using your situation as a prime example where you're closely connected to your family, that could potentially become disastrous if it's not handled properly. And yes, I completely agree that the person who is whose family is in opposition, that person should play the lead role to be that fence, to mend that fence, to repair. So that's pretty neat. So we have a lot to talk about, but time is against us. I noticed that persons have been putting their questions in the chat. We may have to respond to some of these questions offline when our program is officially over. So you can all log in and put your responses to some of these questions. And so those persons who have posed their questions, you can come back for the answers, because I don't think we're going to have time to cover them. The final question that I want us to contemplate as we prepare to wrap. What are your thoughts around dating of new believers? So somebody has just joined the church, just come to Jesus, maybe they've just transitioned from another denomination, and they are faced with this dating prospect. Is there any guidance that you want to share around this whole idea of dating of new believers? So I'd love to hear your take on this, because we do have, our church, we're a movement. We are an evangelistic movement where we're continuously recruiting and enticing and inviting others to a walk with Jesus. So do you recommend that be handled simultaneously? You're getting to know Jesus as a fresh green new believer, and you're also, straddling to navigate this new fresh relationship. What are your thoughts on that? Is it advisable? What do you say? I'm not selecting anyone in any order because I want you to spontaneously respond. But if you want me to use my host privilege, then I will surely do so. I can tell by the smiles who's gonna go.
Not really.
I was right.
Well, I had no choice. If there are two adults, if you have two adults, whatever their circumstances, each one of them has to examine their heart. Now, this is one of the places where counseling can really play a big part. And as long as one is prudent, if there is a seasoned member of a church who is attracted to a new believer, and there is no obvious reason why this is not going to be a viable relationship, I don't think there's anything wrong with giving it a chance. But one has to be prudent. One has to give it some time. One has to observe what the prospect is holding out. In other words, does it look real? Is it possible that this person just came in, for example, to entice someone? Or does it look like a serious, honest effort or honest desire to forge a genuine relationship? It would be a shame to throw away the possibility of a harmonious, happy life on the basis that this person is new. This is where reliance on God and reliance on trusted counselors and a reliance on your own intelligence and outlook, your own experience on both sides can be helpful, because the new believer can be taken advantage of by a person who is seasoned in the church. They might feel obliged to respond in a particular way through some kind of seniority. People bow to all kinds of perceived pressures in one way or the other. So I don't think it's something which should be thrown out the window. But I would, my own perspective would be that one has to be very careful. One has to take time to observe. One has to rely on guidance. And if you're too deep in love, then one has to be willing to rely on a third-party counselor or counselors. And above all, one has to rely on the Word of God and the leading of the Spirit. I think all of these things can be navigated. All of us have the capacity to learn from the experience of others, but there is something which God offers to all of us if we truly rely on Him. And I know that many, many beautiful marriages and relationships have been forged in precisely these circumstances. What it requires is a maturity of outlook and carefulness. I really don't have anything more to offer.
Thank you so much for that rich perspective that you shared with us just now. Very, very enlightening. So we are completely out of time for this program, but I just want to quickly announce to you what the poll results are for our last question. With the increase in marital separations and divorces, has marriage as a sacred bond become overrated? And a whopping 98% of our responders have said no. And only 2% have said yes. And by the account of Elder Lawson just now, we can hear that, marriage still remains a very sacred institution. And this sentiment has been echoed throughout by our couples. And, I just want to, in closing, I just want to use this opportunity to, first of all, thank all of our couples who, put themselves out there and shared a bit of their story with us. They would share more, but time is against us. I hope you came away feeling that this was just not another couples program, because we really didn't want to come away or to come across as, a cliche, regular run-of-the-mill program. We wanted to ask some pointed questions and get some responses that could be insightful and helpful to persons who are on the journey, as well as those who are starting the journey. And importantly, for our young people who are in the valley of decision as it relates to, getting started with a relationship, we want to emphasize the importance of ensuring that God is in the center of it all. You heard from the stories shared that God is that glue that keeps everything together. We come with our own ideas, our own perceptions, our own desires, needs, wants, and so on. And quite a bit of them we end up surrendering because we want the relationship to work. But ultimately, we want to make sure that we make it to heaven, and therefore God has to be the focus of our relationship, and then he helps to make everything else work a lot easier. That's how you get to 4 months, that's how you get to 1 month, that's how you get to 16 years, 25 years. God has to be in the center of it all. So I want to thank you for spending the time with us, and we are welcoming you and inviting you to be a part of our community. You can do this, if you haven't done it yet, you can do this by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Andrew's Memorial S.D.A. You can hit the notification button, so that notification bell, so that once we go live, you are alerted and you can just simply connect via your devices. So I hope that you would have been enriched, enlightened. Thank you for your participation, for the questions that you posed in the chat. We weren't able to get through to them, but we thank you for your polls, and you can stay tuned. Thank you so much, and God bless you. And if you have not yet said yes to Jesus Christ, I encourage you to do so. That's the most important decision that you could ever make. God bless.
No.